it's been moved and second to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. So now we're on to reports, and first off, I'd like to welcome the scouts from Troop 7259 from Perrydale, and welcome. Thanks for making the drive all the way down here to join us for our meeting. Also got to participate this week. The school district, through Title III funding, takes educational programs out to the kids for the migrant workers at some of the farm camps. And so I actually went out and got to spend time with that and work with the kids. It was a fun time. And then this past weekend, or the weekend before last, was the mayor's conference down in Florence. Attended that, got to share a lot of information with other mayors. One of the big things they talked about was recycling and the purpose for recycling, and that there are going to be a lot of changes coming down the pipe on how recycling is done, possible costs, how the state is looking at it, maybe re-identifying items so that it's clear for people to do recycling. So more information will be coming on the future on that. So now I'd like to move to reports for council representatives to boards and commissions. Councilor Silvernagle.
All right, thank you. Monmouth Senior Advisory Board met on July 24th. Three highlights. They did AED volunteer training, so that happened on July 18th. Each Monday in August in the afternoons, they're having seniors bring in grandkids with them, so that's kind of neat. And they got various themes, craft and technology and board games and that type of thing. They had 10 new members this past month, so they're going to do another meet and greet in September. Next meeting is August 28th, and the next breakfast is September 1st. Saturday, September 1st. That concludes my report.
Councilor Carey.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the MINET board met on July 26th and discussed actually a fairly limited agenda. I would say that it was Mike Lodge is the new president, so he's now presiding. Scott has been the president for the last year and a half, and we alternate those between Monmouth and Independence. Mike is a citizen member from Independence and is just fine. The financial report was pretty similar to what it's been. The revenues continue to be fairly consistent. We did get a little bit of an uptick in the operating income this time because there was a reimbursement for some of the services provided by MINET staff prior to the Dallas merger, or not the Dallas merger, but the Dallas expansion. Once that went and bonds were sold, then we received a reimbursement for the services that we had provided prior to that. They continue to expand. They've got a texting service. If you are a customer and you'd like to have reminders and so on, and be able to text for service calls and that sort of thing, that is there, and it is expanding. One of the things that I have to note, generally it's all good news over there, but one of the things that is happening, if we look at, we're continuing to lose customers both in phone and in cable, and we've talked about that, for probably ad nauseum, actually, but we continue to lose those, and it's for a variety of reasons that we've all talked about. We're offsetting that somewhat by increasing our data customers, but we're trying to get a little bit longer look at if we can identify some more trend lines in terms of, we know July is going to be a bit down because the students move out, but how much of a lead, and then when do they begin to come back, and we're going to double the amount of visual data that the board will have to see. So, as we get more of that, I'll be indicating more information to you. quickly, in terms of operations, we're 24 weeks into this GPON conversion, which is a technological upgrade. They're ahead of that, and feeling as though that's progressing better than they'd anticipated. They've completed all of the work on the Highway 99 relocate. They're working on submitting reimbursement forms and for expense reimbursement from ODOT. With all the new construction, they are quite busy. So not only in Dallas, which will begin soon, but here in both Monmouth and Independence. The bonds have sold relative to the Dallas project. That they're hoping to get construction underway soon, and they've hired a customer service representative over there, and so they'll begin some activity in terms of getting the product sold. So that really concludes. Oh, normally we meet on like the third Thursday, so August 23rd was the date that we've had to move that back. I believe they've settled on August 30th, Scott. August 30th. Those are 7:30 in the morning. We're still working on a location. The Hogan Road is not a great one, but that is the date. We're sure of that. Okay, that concludes my report. I'm sorry for the length.
Well, thank you. Any community announcements? Hearing none, I'll talk about the ZimFest that's coming to town. It's pretty amazing. We've got a world music conference that's happening for Zimbabwean music at Western Oregon University. Tomorrow night will be a kickoff concert by Boca Marimba at our Music in the Park series. And then Thursday, the conference starts. There'll be classes available for anybody who wants to learn how to play instruments. There'll be free concerts in the afternoons in the Grove, right in front of Ackerman Hall. And then in the evenings, there'll be concerts that cost at the Pacific Room, and they're $20, and it's probably the best music you're going to hear for $20. There are world-renowned musicians are coming, and so that runs Thursday through Sunday. So come down, enjoy great music. And a lot of the vendors are supporting causes and education back in Zimbabwe. So the vendors are there for a good cause. And with that, I'll move on to City Manager's report.
Yeah, thank you. Key One Power Light Headquarters, we're going to do the groundbreaking for that at 2 o'clock on Thursday. And that'll be down on the side on Eccles Street down by the substation. And then Highway 99, Public Works Director and I are going to go to an ODOT meeting tomorrow to get more of the details and what their construction sequences are going to be, what that's going to look like. We'll continue to stay in touch with them, to make sure that our folks know when there's going to be disruptions or any detours or anything. The building permit system, the state one's live, and so far finance likes it and the building department hates it. They'll figure it out at some point. It's a very different way to organize and get data, and they've had a lot of trouble getting things going. And right out of the gate, if there's just a handful of permits, that'd be one thing, but we had the 119-unit apartment complex to load, and that put them back quite a bit, so that didn't help any. Then last night we had the Council Canada Forum, had a nice attendance at that.
All right, and then that brings us to the fourth quarter.
Are we able to ask our city manager a question? Can we ask a question?
Roy, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, last meeting you said we overran on the 99 project, or they give you the bill. How much was that? I mean, that's on the landscaping only, right?
Yeah, I think it was another 70,000, I think.
70,000, so from 140 we went to 210.
Yeah. Yep. And who knows if that will be the last one.
And I have a question too. I noticed when I came out of Rotary on Thursday that they were tarring the cracks in the asphalt in the parking lot there.
Mm-hmm.
Is Monmouth doing anything like that for our streets here?
We actually haven't. That's one that got deferred with the lack of money, but that's something we'd like to get back on the table again. We
Okay.
should be.
Any timeline?
That's all the kind of discussion of priorities in the program. We need to have that broader discussion. So that'll be how much money do you want going toward maintenance, how much we want going toward bigger projects,
Okay,
things like that.
thank you.
Any other questions? All right, fourth quarter financial report.
I'm going to start by distributing a correction for the final page of your financial reports. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. So you have in front of you, or hopefully you've had a chance to read the fourth quarter financial report. There were no real big surprises relative to what we predicted the estimated actuals would come out in the adopted budget process. We did see, as projected, that some of the revenues came in higher and some came in lower. In particular, I guess I would say that property taxes actually came in just a little bit higher still than what we were predicting when we went through the budget process, only maybe another $10,000. Unfortunately, marijuana taxes did have the shortfall predicted of about $34,000, and fines and forfeitures also, that shortfall was predicted in our budget sequence, but is about $64,000 below what the total forecasted original budget was. Fortunately, departments worked hard to spend only what they needed to spend, and were able to offset those expenses, including, or that shortfall, including we were able to do some of the, with some of the savings that we have, we were able to do some of the expenditures for City Hall roof that we talked about, and for the police department and some of their technical replacements that they needed. So, I will say that overall, the general fund will be coming in at roughly where we estimated it will be coming in at, again, in the estimated budget process. We still have some final accruals to do, so these are not the final numbers. Obviously, I have the audit to go through. So we will see some adjustments, some additional accruals for monies that will come in. For example, we are still expecting another $25,000 or $30,000 from revenue sharing. And we have, because the payments don't always coincide with June 30th, but they relate to June 30th, so we're allowed to accrue them back. So these are not the final revenue numbers, but I was pleased that they came in very, very close to what we predicted. I will highlight a couple of the other funds as far as just things that have changed from the last quarter. I want to also talk a little bit about MyNet and say that they were able to come through with a payment which was larger than what was budgeted, and so in the end, Power and Light ended up transferring less than $400,000 to cover the final payment, which is about where we are predicting it'll be next year again. So we've come down from the $800,000 that we have traditionally budgeted there, which is I think a good sign. The building fund was very, very close on materials and services. We were within $57 of our final budget, and that was because Larry did such a great job of bringing all that revenue in that we had state surcharges that just about we had to come back to you to get more budget, but we skated under that, and I think that it will be a lot easier next year when we have the ability to have that budget all as a departmental budget instead of broken down into materials and services and personnel services and capital, because then when you have fluctuations in things like professional contracts, which are out of materials and services but are used for personnel purposes, you have a little bit of capacity to shift those costs but still stay within your total budget. Anyway, that was the exciting news on the building fund. In the urban renewal district, I mentioned again the third quarter spending that we did, but in the fourth quarter, I just wanted, if you were looking at your report at all, you'll see that there was about an $87,000 change in expenditures that went higher, and that was planned expenditures for the debt service on the urban renewal district, as well as the general fund support that they paid, the $15,000 that is budgeted for urban renewal district to support budgeting and all of the things that we do, accounts payable and that kind of thing to support them. The last thing I'll draw to your attention, the corrected sheet that I gave you for the investment report. And what happened there was a formula in the cash balance for the urban renewal district. The original version of your report online had that the balance was around $923,000 in cash. Unfortunately, that was picking up the transportation SDC cash balance, so I wanted to correct that for you because it's about half. And which is not a bad place to be. 467,000 is still a healthy cash balance, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. And other than that, for the from the investment perspective, I would just say that we are still, for now, doing the bulk of our investing is in the local government investment pool. The rates have been actually moving up fairly steadily, as we've seen with the Fed rate. It's not moving up in leaps and bounds, but it is, we're seeing some advancement. And so it is a very safe, secure place for us to have our dollars that earns a lot more than a similarly liquid investment vehicle would. And with that, I'll welcome questions.
Questions? Well,
I know we were way off on our marijuana last year, so we should bring that up. Do you hear anything from the state on this year? Anything at all? Predictions or what's really happening?
So the number that we ended up with
Right.
in our budget is based on their prediction, and they are, all that I'm hearing honestly is that prices are going down on marijuana, so as a result, taxes are going down. Monmouth is actually doing better than a number of the cities as far as our ability to collect taxes. We have no bad debts on any of our entities in town, whereas some of the other jurisdictions are experiencing not poor collection for their taxes. So that's the good news.
This is on that 3% sales tax.
Correct, on 3% and also on the state revenue share.
Okay. We have to collect that and then give it to the state, or?
No, they collect it for us and
Give them
distribute
that,
it.
okay.
Correct. We do get a small admin fee, but it's very minimal.
any other questions? Well,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
Then part of that urban renewal district, that 84,000, part of that was to pay back the college company, right? That $87,000.
For the amphitheater loan,
Yeah.
correct, yes. Power and Light put forward $500,000 towards
Yeah.
the amphitheater. and
Okay, so that's part of
yes.
that.
Correct, that's exactly what it is.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? At this time is reserved for citizen comments on items that are not on the agenda. It's a maximum of 3 minutes per person. If you wish to comment on a specific agenda item, please sign in on a sheet provided. And so is there anyone who'd like to come up and share some comments with us?
I have a comment, but it's also an agenda item. Sorry. I'm sorry.
You go ahead.
So we'll take comments on that agenda item in the work session. It's on the basketball hoops?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
That was my initial question, because I have a question on another thing in the work session. We can wait for that for citizen
Okay.
comments.
All right. So any other comments on things that aren't on the agenda or in the work session? All right, now we'll move on to our business agenda, and I believe this is Director Duffner.
Good evening, members of the council. I'm here. So we have the first reading of an ordinance to adopt comprehensive plan amendments, zone change 17-03. This is the application that you had a public hearing on at the last meeting on July 17th for the plan amendment and zone change from residential to, or excuse me, from industrial to residential for a 32-acre parcel that's in the 9,000 block of Hoffman Road. The planning commission also had a public hearing on this, if you recall, on June 20th. They recommended approval subject to 3 conditions. At the end of the council hearing that you had on July 17th, the council also made an action to approve it subject to the 3 conditions. So we have before you the ordinance that's needed to formally approve the plan amendment and zone change. We do have the final findings attached to that ordinance, and also the maps and legal description of the property that would be rezoned and redesignated on the comprehensive plan. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
Any questions? Hearing none, this is an ordinance amending the Monmouth Comprehensive Plan map designation for certain real property located in the 9,000 block of Hoffman Road, being the 32-acre portion of Assessor Map number 8419, tax lot number 107, from industrial to low-density residential, and amending the Momouth zoning map designation for said property for general industrial, from general industrial to low-density residential. And I declare this passed its first reading. So we don't need a motion on this one, okay? Okay. So we'll move on to council comments. Any comments from councilors?
Just one that we may want to sort of put this on our radar. You may have heard and may have noticed that the spin bikes program are sort of going away, and they're considering adding scooters, and that's going on in other cities. And I'm just suggesting that we're going to want to kind of keep an eye on, if that does come, we're going to want to keep an eye on what that might look like in terms of traffic, in terms of sidewalks, in terms of other things. Just sort of put it on the radar.
Do you mean motorized scooters?
Motorized scooters.
The ones that are 49 cc or less? That you don't need a motorcycle enforcement?
Yeah, I see, I don't know the details of what they're going to bring.
I have some details.
Yeah.
I was at a transportation conference last week speaking with one of the Spin representatives, and he had said this was a decision that Spin, the company, made to pull the bicycles and to offer scooters in their place. They will not require helmets. They do not require endorsements. They need to be charged every night, and so if they're left somewhere, they're picked up that night. Otherwise, they're dead. And so nothing has been decided with the university whether they'll be doing that or not. It's up to the cities to make and enforce rules as far as where they can be ridden. In Portland, they can only be ridden on the street and not sidewalks. And so it's just something, I'm glad you brought it to our attention, but it'll be really important for us to make those decisions and educate people if they come to town.
Just a clarify point there, actually per state law, you can only ride them on a street, and you actually have to wear a helmet. It can't be on a sidewalk, and so that's going to be a game changer. So now, the spin bike, you can just come and jump on the spin bike. But if you're going to ride a scooter, if you happen to have a helmet in your backpack, you've got that on you to jump on. So I think if it goes that route, there's going to be some enforcement issues, because people their comfort's going to be, well, I want to ride on the sidewalks, I feel safer. But the point is, you can go 15 miles an hour, and so that'll get you somewhere pretty good.
Well, point being, we just need to have that on the radar to be ready to respond. Sorry.
Laurel, did you have a comment you want to make?
Yeah, I just want to
Roy.
add, this is through the college, isn't it? I mean, the same as the bikes, been through the college. And so they will come, they have to come before us for the scooters, or is it just like spin bikes, they're out there?
It depends on how they want to partner.
That's what I mean, did they just showed up and that's what it was? Okay, yeah.
Actually, a ton of communities, there is no partnership, but they just show up.
Right, and that's,
And no one's aware of
Yeah.
them, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn from somebody?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved to adjourn. All those in favor? Signify by saying aye. All right, so we're going to stay here for our Urban Renewal Agency meeting. And so I'd like to call to order the Monmouth Urban Renewal Agency meeting for Tuesday, August 7th. And roll call, please.
Mr. Carey,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Dr. Sharmer,
Mayor?
Mr. Schenkel,
Here.
Mr. Silvernagle,
Here?
Ms. Belt, here, Mr. Milligan.
Here. And so at this time, it's time reserved for citizen comments on items that are not on the agenda, maximum of 3 minutes. So these comments would be Urban Renewal Agency comments, if anybody has any. Hearing none, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of minutes for approval from the Urban Renewal Agency meeting of June the 5th, 2018.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, those pass. We'll move on to the business agenda. And the first item is a general assistance grant for Petals and Vines. Director Buckner?
So, yes, we have a general assistance grant application for a commercial business located at 410 Main Street East, known as better as the Petals and Vines Floral and Gift Shop there on Main Street. They were the unfortunate recipient of an accident earlier this year. You've probably seen the front entrance has been barricaded up. So, kind of a neat opportunity that came from this. The owners are going to be redoing the front of the building with a new porch area on the front of the building and kind of restoring a little bit the kind of historic character of the front of the building that had a porch on it historically, and then also putting in a new ADA ramp on the front entrance of the building. So really neat project. They've submitted application again for a general grant assistance application. The total construction cost for the improvements is just under $40,000. So they are requesting $15,000 in grant assistance, which is about 30% of the overall project cost for that porch and the ADA improvements. So generally a grant, we at least require 50%. So they have well over matched and leveraged those grant funds. So that's a good thing. And then they're actually not included in that $40,000. They're also doing improvements to the sidewalks and the roof as well. The roof repair is just under $11,000. So quite a bit of improvements going on to this support this existing business. So the criteria for approving a general grant assistance project is that it's consistent with the goals and objectives of the Urban Renewal District Plan, and the staff report outlines 5 of those objectives. So this project is consistent with the objectives to improve an existing business to help them retain and expand that by improving that building in the downtown Main Street district. It will also help the aesthetic and the historic quality of that building that's out on Main Street. So staff is recommending approval. There are copies of the proposed improvements, some photos of the existing building facade attached, and also color sample. Basically, the paint will match the existing building now. They have gone through the owners and received building permit approval, so they're going through the steps they need to do to get the construction approval. And I point out that the owners are also here tonight as well, in case there's some questions that you'd like to ask them. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a quick question. Did the liability insurance of the person who tried to drive in to buy flowers, did that insurance cover any of this?
Yes, my understanding is that there is an insurance claim, but I think it would probably be best to ask Dwight or Maggie that question for more specifics on it. Yeah.
So Dwight or Maggie, would you like to come up to the table and answer the question, Laurel's question?
Thank you. The question was about the insurance. The insurance for the porch to be replaced as it was roughly $17,000. The problem arose when they realized that they had damaged the vinyl siding and were unable to match that siding. And so we went back and they said, well, we'll put a new front on the building. And I said, well, the problem is that there's 2 fronts to this building, Echoes and Main Street. And we ended up with the insurance finally agreeing to $27,500 $300, which would include the cost if we so chose to replace the vinyl siding with wood siding, but not change the looks of the building. And dealing with Jane, the architect, she was able to come up with a plan that said, look, we can leave the vinyl siding, the addition of the porch to be covered and return the building to 1926 motif would take about an additional $25,000. And we chose to go that route. And that ended up then with us coming to you to ask for an assistance, because the total cost, and there's a lot of parts on this. The part that we have filed on the application was to put the new front on the building. That was it. Incremental to that, we had put a new roof on. That was roughly $10,500. That process is now underway. And then out of the blue, in the last 30 days, the sidewalk just started crumbling. The cement disappeared and it's cracked, and so we're going ahead and replacing the cracked segment which runs from Main Street, new sidewalk, to roughly the back of the building. Total cost of all this, when it gets done, it will be in excess of $50,000. And we're asking for an assistance of what we can get. There's a side that's really not, just to bring it to your attention, lost business, and we're pursuing that with our own insurance company, which we have. But we've been hit with sales are down versus a year ago, and it's primarily people don't think we're open, even though the front has got these huge signs on it. The front is closed with the plastic, and so we're looking forward to get this done and probably get this open, we hope, completed by I'm going to say mid-September. Keep my fingers crossed. Any other questions?
Thanks, Dwight.
Wait,
Yes.
just to clarify, you don't own the property?
Yes, we do.
You do own the
We
property?
bought the building a year ago.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And the second thing we're doing is we're using local architects, local contractors, local excavators who are out there today who live in Independence. And I think Maggie deserves the credit. She's used local unless it's just not available.
So, well, question?
This is, this back to, we're making this back to the 1926, but this couldn't qualify as historic, could it, because of the vinyl sightings?
Right,
That's right.
it's listed as not eligible in our historic
Okay,
inventory.
I just-
So we checked,
We
yeah.
know it's 1926 when it was built. or
Right,
it was originally
right, it has that.
Can I speak to that?
Oh, sure.
We realize that, but we're looking at steps and the dormers on the building. Everything on the second floor is going to be wood. And we're putting in 4-inch wood siding, which will blend in with the existing vinyl siding. And as we move forward, we'll take it a side at a time. The porch will not have any vinyl. The porch will be composed of concrete, wood, stucco, and when they opened up the interior, because when that car hit the building, it knocked the existing covered porch off its foundation, and we had to have that put back. But we found the two pillars that became visible. So we know what we're trying to replicate.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Suzanne, it says the last grant was for $1,741. Has there ever been a grant of this magnitude that anybody's aware of?
Check with Scott through here, but I believe there was one for Cody Van Ross's building. It was around 50,000. Right.
Less 30, I think.
Close enough.
In the ballpark, and way back when the Vision Clinic relocated, we helped them out on that. And that was actually interesting because we helped out with direct money here, and we also assisted with reconstruction of a sewer line into their building too.
Any more questions? Thanks, Dwight.
Thank you.
Are you entertaining a motion on this? No.
I am.
Okay, well, I move to approve a general assistance grant application for $15,000 for the property located at 410 Main Street, please.
And I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I would just say that this is exactly the type of project that this fund is designed to address. In particular, the instant project ticks all of the boxes here. And, you know, while we often do smaller ones, we have done the larger ones with the building up on the corner. And personally, it makes good sense to sort of revitalize that end of our downtown area.
And Petals and Bund have been such a good community partner. They've been so supportive of so many activities, so.
Any further discussion? Come on.
Yeah, we want to be able to keep them there, like fixing the building, we'll be able to keep them there.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And, or do we, no, we don't need a resolution in the urban.
Legally,
renewal
no.
agency.
Legally, you don't need that. So
Okay.
as long as you got a recorded unanimous vote, you're good.
Okay. And anyone opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. And now we're on to the next item, which is the city clock. And Director Duffner, I guess that's yours again.
Hi, you don't hear a lot of me tonight. Okay, so you probably have noticed that our clock next to City Hall is dying. It's not keeping time anymore. It's been a good clock. I think it was installed in the late 80s from what I understand from the sign company that came out and take a look at it. But we're coming to the Urban Renewal Agency for some direction on what to do with the clock. Outlined some options in the staff report. As I mentioned, we did have the sign company, Martin Brothers, my sign company that initially installed the sign, came out for inspection and opened it up and looked at it, and they found that the gear parts are in need of replacements. I'm not a tech person, so I can't be able to explain it better, but it's in need of a replacement of those gears. So they did give us an estimate of $4,200 is what it would cost to have those manufactured and installed. They recommended that if we're going to the extent, to the trouble to have somebody come in and repair it, that it'd be a good idea to replace the light bulbs as well to LED and freshen up the sign faces as well at that same time, kind of to give it an updated look. So that total cost for the repair and the new light bulbs and the new sign or faces would be $6,500 for that. So that got us thinking that, wow, that's getting up there for the cost of the replacement of a new clock. So did some research, staff did some research online of kind of some general estimates of what it would cost to install a new clock, and it varies widely, as you can imagine, depending on the height and how many faces, clock faces that you have, and how elaborate. We saw some pretty interesting Art Deco interpretations, but so probably around $10,000 to $50,000 was the range that we were coming back with estimates for a new clock. So that's, you know, one of the options. So the first option is, do we want to repair what's there existing, or really attached to that, or do we want to look at replacing it with something new? Might be able to make that a fun community input exercise if we had a couple of options. that had the urban renewal agency's blessing that we could present to the public and they could vote on their favorite clock that, that they want to see it replaced with. Or do we just remove it and kind of wait and see, and because we also have City Hall kind of looming out there of what's going to happen with the remodel of City Hall. So those are kind of the options that we've outlined as staff as we've thought about that. And I put a couple of photos of the clock in there as well, so that you can see that it's definitely not keeping time anymore when I took that picture. Yeah, I don't know if you have any questions about that.
Any questions?
When you talk about a city clock like this, I can't help but think of Back to the Future, the movie and the clock and the gable in the City Hall.
Lightning.
If in our new City Hall building, we incorporated a clock, say, for instance, in the front gable, we could have a front gable, would it cost as much as that $10,000?
I honestly did not price those. Those were a lot of the companies that we were looking at that produce these kind of clocks also do those as well. They were in the catalog. I hadn't looked at those prices, so I could definitely do some research and find out, what that number would look like.
Any other questions, comments?
Just a comment. I can't imagine any kind of, and while we have some work to do yet on the location of City Hall, and what we're going to do regarding that existing site, that existing area, and then architecturally what it might look like, I can't imagine an architectural structure that would be that would complement this clock. In other words, I would certainly not going to build around that design. And so, and given that it's not really a particularly attractive piece, given that it's not necessarily a city function to provide time. I think it's a nice touch, and I sort of like Laurel's idea that, I might be inclined to suggest that we sort of remove the clock, so it's sort of become a joke, and to remove it and then look to incorporate something like that into the design of a city hall, if it is there. If not, then we can come back and revisit whether we want to do it. I don't see the value really in $6,500 to replace the existing one, and then try to get one that would be in concert with any new building that may occur. I just don't see that as a wise path. Just my own 2 bits.
Roxanne?
I can certainly agree. Aesthetically, it's not particularly pleasing. I can't see investing in fixing it. And I really like the idea of a couple options, 3 or 4 options, and asking the community, because after all, the community are the ones that look at it. And I can't tell you how many people have said to me, yeah, drive by the clock, it's only right 2 times a day. I think people do notice it, and while I love the idea also of having it in a new city hall, we don't have a timeline for that. And I don't want to fall into a trap of, we're going to put it when we get City Hall. I mean, that could be years down the road. So I really think the community deserves a nice clock that they can look at, point out, and say, we supported this. I just like that idea a lot. How much money, by the way, did we save on the roof?
I think that was toward 10,000, 10,000 on that, so. And one note for the clock too is if you get something that's basically an attractive clock, we pick it up and move it if we need to. We can just walk it right over to Main Street Park if it doesn't fit, or even if we go all the way out to the curb, we have to move it. But yeah, you just pick it up, reattach it, you're fine. So that wouldn't be a wasted investment.
Okay. So we needed a new roof, we put it on, it didn't cost us as much, so we have a little extra.
Different funds.
They're different funds, but
Okay,
It's all
just
happy.
thinking,
It's all
one bucket.
Also, Rotary District 5100 has grant funds available that they're having trouble giving away.
Oh.
You might know something about that, Mr. City Manager. That's certainly something, just have a little rotary wheel on the clock somewhere and donated by the Momouth and the Funds Rotary Club.
Okay, so we needed a new roof, we put it on, it didn't cost us as much, so we have a little extra.
Rotary District 5100 has grant funds available that they're having trouble giving away.
And that was some of the clocks that I look at that were sponsored or partially funded or funded by Rotary Club.
Ron, did you have a comment?
Yeah, well, I'm with John Connie, it's a 1980, it's, doesn't have any historic value. Second thing is, you can buy a $10,000 clock, I can almost guarantee you that the base is not gonna be right, the wiring's not gonna be right, so you're gonna end up with a whole new stand and everything else. So you're not talking 10,000, you're probably talking another 5,000 to have it installed and everything. I don't know, I'm kinda in the way that maybe just take it down for now until we can redress it in 2 years. I mean, it doesn't mean that if the city hall's still down the road, we're just, I'm with him, maybe the city park would be a better place for it than maybe out in front of the, area. I'm just saying the 10,000 is not really gonna cover it. Is once you go out to get bid, I think Darren can say the same thing, it'll surprise you what it will cost to mount that once you buy the clock. That's what I'm saying.
And we could certainly direct staff to be as inclusive in terms of their cost estimate as possible before we made a final decision. How much is it really going to cost? So, yeah.
Yeah, and if we.
They're good at that, that's their
And
job.
if you go a path of getting to a comfort level, like if you're not comfortable with the 50,000 clock, then tell us that, and then when we developed options for the community to look at, we wouldn't have clocks of that nature. Although the one had 4 columns and eagles on it.
Eagles on top, yes.
It was pretty amazing. So,
Did they spin?
I'm not sure. That's cool.
Any thoughts, Darren?
Well, the timing's kind of interesting on this one, and then we don't know exactly how all the pieces are going to fit together. So I'm kind of inclined to hold off for the time being. And if we remove it, maybe that's better in the short run. That'd be my 2 cents worth, I guess.
Aaron?
Yeah, no disrespect to anybody or their opinion, but it just seems a little bit of a frivolous expense at this point to replace that. So I'm with John and Royal about kicking the can down the road and incorporate that into the city hall somehow, whether it's 2 years or 10 years. The clock hasn't been working for 15 or as long as I can remember, so nobody's going to miss it for the time being out there.
All right, so do you feel directed yet, or?
Sounds like it.
Huh?
Poor clock.
So the procedure would be to just simply remove this clock and.
Yeah, it sounds like
replace
that,
it
just, we'll just remove it.
Okay.
Is anybody interested in pursuing Rotary funds?
I'm not sure, 'cause it sounds like people were concerned about integrating, design, et cetera. Must be
Maybe
good.
interested in seeing how much Rotary would have for a project like this?
Yeah, I think that could certainly come back.
Okay.
We're not throwing it out the door, we're just saying it isn't worth fixing. What I'm concerned is it isn't worth fixing what we have.
No.
And instead of getting all the people looking at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock or whatever it's setting at, let's just take it down for now, and we can come back to this subject anytime. Makes no difference, and depends on what kind of podium you put to hold it, stanchion. What I'm trying to say is that will, you can put that on, and if it can be, when you incorporate it, have it so it can be moved. That's the other thing when you put it up. But come back and address it later.
Counselor Johnson, are you suggesting remove it now and then do some research for the future? What grant funds are available, what might work further down the road?
Yeah.
Not throwing the whole thing out, but just saying get rid of what's there because it's not working well and it's not very attractive.
Okay. You want a motion for that, or does that give you enough guidance? Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to, I'm looking for a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so at this point, we're going to take about a 5-minute recess. Council will reconvene at the back of the room for our work session. And then when I call back to order, we'll get started on that agenda.